on teams taking companies public, and I understand the way, kind of the legal framework works in the U.S. at least, and that was the strictest kind of framework. And we talked about that this morning, so I won't talk about it again. I've been on the board of FaZe Clan, and also act as lead advisor to ARK Invest and Kathy Wood, and the theme developer for video games and blockchain. So why, after all these years in gaming, why are we here in Polkadot? And I think this could surprise people. It specifically has to do with a crisis of inauthenticity that we are in. This really kicked off for me in Cambridge Analytica. I remember in 2016 thinking, this is going to be huge. People are going to shut down Facebook. I can't believe this is going on. When people find out about Cambridge Analytica, this is going to be a huge, change in behavior. And I was completely wrong, because people want to show pictures of their kids on Facebook. And they care more about that than they cared about privacy at the time. However, we are, I think, in a brand new, much more serious wave of inauthenticity. AI is pouring gasoline on that fire, and I think this is going to add to and lead to a potential national security level crisis. I'm not being dramatic here, I'm just observant, and I think that we're going to get to a point where big companies, big government is going to wake up and say, what can we do to ensure authenticity on the internet, provenance on the internet, all of the things that Web3 offers, and specifically that Polkadot brings: more truth, less trust. So let's just get to the .play strategy. So 2017, I started digging into, for a big Hollywood studio in LA, I started digging into this concept of blockchain games. And they were wondering whether or not they should invest in one or the other of many blockchain games. And my conclusion was no, and it was very, very difficult at the time, because there was a lot of momentum behind games like Axie Infinity. And what we have realized over the years is the problem with focusing, or the problem with, I think, the strategy of blockchain games is they focus on the players. They try to attract individual players to come and play games. When you are attracting individual players, you're attracting individuals who care about speculation on a token. And so those individual players come in, they play the game. It's usually 50 to 100 people, honestly, in every game. They bid up the price of the token, and they try to sell it before anybody else sells it, or sell first and leave and go to the next game. The definition of value in media and entertainment, and video games is just one form of that, is engagement and longevity. So Epic Games, which is the creator of Fortnite, one of the biggest gaming publishers really on the planet, they pay their developers based on how long players engage. That's it. Because that is the value of media. So in blockchain games, we're kind of incentivizing the reverse. Come, play the game, flip the token, go to the next game. That's not really valuable. So what we're doing is we're focusing on the independent game developers who have large audiences. Because if they are on certain platforms, they can move very quickly, and they can come into Web3. And a lot of them have a similar ethos as well. The other thing that we're planning and envisioning is this experience exchange. So it is, think about questing, social, all of the kind of fun in a community that we know and love in Web3 that exists in various places, and also in gaming. If we can build an experience exchange for gaming in Polkadot, and we keep envisioning .pops. .pops are points, kind of like frequent flyer points that you earn when you're playing these different games or engaging in certain communities or experiences. And then what if you could use those to exchange in other games or other experiences, or even use them to invite other players? So this is the big picture, and the examples that we're using to show people the way are Mythical on one end of the spectrum, and the Mythos chain, and Everloot, which is Polkadot native. So I already went through this. Why not blockchain games? I mean, I think there isn't a single metric out there that points to anything other than, I always say, rounding to zero. These projects are dead. The tokens Go up, go down, people move on. MoveOn.com, as I always say, this is not a sustainable business model. Web 2 is also challenged right now. So costs are very high. The cost of producing AAA games has gone up to hundreds of millions of dollars, and it takes 3 to 5 years. So imagine the last 3 to 5 years, there are all these game developers sitting in Electronic Arts, heads down, spending hundreds of millions of dollars for one game. GTA 6, Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out this year. This is like a massive deal. It's really the only focus of the traditional gaming market. Years, $1 billion. I mean, it's crazy how expensive single games have become. Also, marketing is challenged in games right now. That's due to regulatory changes like GDPR, IDFA. And so, again, these kind of community-driven, authentic engagement moments, like the experience exchange that we're envisioning in Polkadot, that is really going to replace banner ads, programmatic, boom, 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 boom. People don't care. They don't even see it. I have a 13-year-old. She doesn't even see this stuff. Roblox came out last week and said they were going to start doing video ads. And I asked her about it, and she was like, ugh, gross. Why would I ever want that on the screen? Like, there's no video on Roblox now. So I think that we need to think more creatively and differently. And also AAA players. So I think those strategies are pretty much baked. We've got the Asia, Japan AAA studios or publishers, like We Made, Netmarble, Square Enix, Sony, you name it. They have their own blockchains. They've decided to go down the path of creating their own, and they all say they want to be the port of entry to Web3 gaming. If you go to the US and Europe, they're more conservative. They're basically like, I used to joke that you drive into Activision's parking lot and they tell you to go back to the car if you mention the word blockchain or Web3. They just don't like it. They think it's a scam. And I think, and we think that if they go down this path of Web3 gaming, they will go to a company like Mythical, which gives them comfort because John Linden, the CEO, ran Call of Duty. So anyway, we're not really focused on AAA as well, either. So independent game developers. The interesting thing about independent game developers is that their ethos is very much in line with the crypto ethos. They care about maintaining their sovereignty. They care about building a direct connection with their audience. They care about expanding in the future and not being tied to any one platform. They care about authenticity, provenance. They care about being free to move if they want to, and free to stay if they want to do that. They care about shorter game development time. So a lot of these trends are moving their way, and a lot of them, I think, will lead them to Web3. The other thing that's really important, platforms have developed over the last few years. Roblox over the last 16 years, Fortnite's UEFN, which is their creator platform that's like Roblox, that's developed over the last 2.5 years. Those platforms are welcoming these independent game developers. One thing I didn't mention in AAA and in traditional gaming, layoffs have never been this high. 90,000 people in traditional gaming have been laid off since the peak, which is COVID. Those people are becoming independent game developers because most of them make games. And so they're making them on their own. And guess what? There are these platforms that are allowing them to create games and make these games quickly and cheaply. So our idea is, let's go to those Web 2 independent developers. Let's show them all the things that we can do for them and problems that we can solve for them. And especially if we go to the ones that already have an audience and already have a community, let's let them bring their audience. Let's let them bring the community with them. So these are some of the places that we're going that I mentioned. And how do we get them to Polkadot? And I think that there are a few, we always say that there's a jigsaw in the puzzle and there are a few missing pieces in the jigsaw puzzle from a tech perspective. We're not engineers, but we're tapping into who might be able to solve that. So, thanks to Nicholas, we've already solved and where he was previously, we've already solved the Unity SDK. We're now working on the Unreal SDK. So if we can get the game engine solved, I think that's kind of a check the box. But what we really want to spend our time doing is building this experience exchange and all of the kind of activities and authentic behavior that we can create inside Polkadot that's, again, going to create true media value, engagement, and longevity. Those are the two things that build sustainable business model in media. So this is kind of a view of it. This is our Roblox character, which is Mercedes Monet. She's a wrestler. She's the highest paid women's wrestler in history. She wants to get involved in Polkadot. She wants to be an ambassador in-game. So we're going to have a lot of pink in her characters. We're working on some ideas, so stay tuned on that. And then I'll switch now. So we have two kind of sides of Dot Play. One is the BD side, which is the top of funnel. So that's just like meeting game studios all day, every day, and really trying to, you know, almost like act like a traffic cop and say, okay, you need to go see, you know, this person. You need to go to the Treasury directly. We can actually look at this. And then the Dot Play bounty is kind of further down in the funnel, and this is where we become a games publisher, like a traditional games publisher. And so what does a game publisher do? It's an operating business. A games publisher is not an investor, even though a lot of investors say that they roll up their sleeves, and they do. I've been an investor for many years. You roll up your sleeves and you work with founders and you get involved. A games publisher is actually on the hook for a lot more. We provide marketing, we provide tools, we also provide funding, and one of the things that we're providing is this experience exchange. So we're putting this in all the contracts. If you take part in our publisher, then we would like for your content creation to flow into the experience exchange. So again, and our target is the indie Web 2 developers. The reason this is important is because we are in evangelizing mode. We are in educating mode. So when we do these game publisher deals, again, they're not equity, so we don't put money in and kind of wait for an exit. We put money in and we do a revenue share deal with the studio. So we're in the trenches on the games, and we're doing a revenue share deal. So we'll have like a 25% revenue share until we get paid back, and then a 15% until we get 3x our money. So we're really in the trenches with these developers, and our idea is this could take a little bit of time, so let's make money along the way and pass 80% of that net revenues or profit in gaming terms, pass that back to the treasury. And the idea with that is that the 20% would help help fund our team, and then we create a sustainable business model where the revenues flow back to the treasury and refill. So I'll give you some examples. This is what I'm really excited about. This is our first big bet. This is a game publisher, game developer in Texas. It's called WonderWorks, and he won a deal with Paramount to create a SpongeBob game in Roblox. It launched Christmas Eve. It now it had 200 million visits in 100 days. The session length is 33 minutes. This has been mind-blowing to Paramount. I mean, imagine like all the TV shows, movies, content out there, Netflix, 33 minutes straight per player is incredible in terms of engagement time. 9.6 million people are coming to this game monthly. And it's global. And that was Christmas Eve. So this is, whatever it is, 3 months later, here's where we are. It has the highest number of concurrent players in a branded game on Roblox. So that's really exciting. And it's in the top 15 on monetization. It's a tower defense game, which is higher monetization. There's a lot of things to buy. And anyway, the developer and Paramount are so excited about this that they've come back and offered us another game. And also the developer is so excited about the experience with us that he said he definitely wants to get involved in this experience exchange, and kind of we keep saying we're building the watch, not the treadmill, the watch when you're on the treadmill. So the idea is that we won't recreate Roblox because that would go against the terms of service of Roblox. We're going to create an experience about the experience so that the developer can have a direct connection to his or her audience and bring those players with a different experience where they're going to earn these dot pops. So anyway, so this is SpongeBob, which we're pretty excited about. And the other thing about this is when they bring the audience, these guys are not speculators. They're following a well-known developer in Roblox who also happens to be one of the top influencers on YouTube. And so anyway, we're pretty excited about that. These are some smaller games that we're working on. We have 6 indies in progress. And, you know, these are about 50%-ish done. I was going to, let me see if I can play this. This is Nitro Nation. This is a racing game by CM Games. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. So, let's see here. Okay. So that's a completely different style game. With that one, we did a credit facility where we gave them a loan and also funding for what's called UA, which is user acquisition, which is another word for marketing. And now this is one that we're really excited about, Everloot, which just passed today. And Nicholas is on the curator committee, by the way, for the bounty. And we are really excited about this one because we have the ability to show a very successful, engaging piece of content with 2 people who have started in Polkadot, survived in Polkadot, and they're growing in Polkadot. And what we're excited about with Asset Hub is that they are going to be our go-to-market and kind of our poster child, and they're also really excited about it. So stay tuned tomorrow because we're going to have some trailers that are going to come out. We've got a YouTube short with the founders, and so, yeah, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. And then in terms of the tech jigsaw, so then we switch to the technology and the pieces on the, you know, the missing jigsaw puzzle pieces that I mentioned. And there are 2 types, really. One is the game engine, which I mentioned. So we've got Unity in progress. We already have the, we've got the Unity SDK that already exists. And we're doing some kind of revamping of the messaging around that. And then we've got the Unreal Engine. And these two engines, by the way, if you're not familiar with Unreal Engine and Unity, make up about, a huge chunk of the market, 90-ish% of the market. Unreal Engine is really more known for rich graphics, and Unity is better known for casual games, but they're really merging because Unreal Engine has really leapfrogged in terms of their ability to be used in casual, and so we're seeing kind of a convergence of market share in casual games, which is really where we're focusing. Okay, and then this is the other exciting part. Because we can't compete with a games publisher that has data analytics and most game publishers will say, oh, we have got this great program that's just going to tell you, the demo of all your users and kind of who's playing and when they're playing and how you can sell them more things. And so what we're saying is, okay, what can we provide as a games publisher? So our goal is to leapfrog into the future, offer tools that none of the other publishers are offering because 1, they're too scared, 2, they're just, kind of already offering the tools that everybody else is offering. So what we're going to is virtual KOLs. So we have a virtual influencer squad coming out, led by Dottie, who's here. She's going to be playing games, talking about them on social media, and creating content. This is the whole squad. And then we're going to be providing, well, we already are providing 3D asset generation tools. And this is something with the publisher of the SpongeBob game that really differentiated us. They said, no one has come to us and offered us 3D asset generation tools. Now they're using them pretty widely in their games. It's kind of like you hear this narrative out of Hollywood, you see the strikes and you hear people concerned about AI, and then you see actual artists, 3D artists, if they use the tools make them better, faster, and more efficient at their job. They're mostly using them. I call it like they're using them kind of under the table. It's like if you hand somebody a power tool and say, hey, do you want to use this or do you want to use, I'm not very good with tools, but whatever you'd use instead of a power tool. So I think that I think that this is really misunderstood because these 3D asset generation tools, if you're using one of these, you also know Blender, which is a software that you need to create video games. You also know Mixamo. You are already a professional game developer. And if you have these tools in your hand, it's just another professional tool that's making you better. And one of the things that the game developer told us is if you can, not that game developer, another one, said if you could make us, they have a racing game, not Nitro Nation, but another one. They said we can make our artists can make 2.5 cars a day. Every car we make, we can sell. If you can make us 3.5 cars a day, 4.5 cars a day, it's absolutely worth it. And we're up to 10 right now. So this is, and the artists are actually really excited about it because they see that it's making them, they're able to focus on higher level things like their heroes. We call these tables and chairs fixes. When you're a game developer, you don't like the idea of making tables and chairs. You want to focus on your heroes and the main characters and the lore. And so these are, I think, going to be really, really exciting. So I'll show you this. Maybe. Oh, no, I won't show you that. Maybe I could show it here, actually. I should be able to show it here, yeah. Oh, no. Sorry, that's what's coming out. Sorry. Sorry, that's what's coming out tomorrow. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. Okay. Let's see here. No, hang on. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Oh, I don't have the video in there. Well, anyway, the point on these is that you can't really tell it here, but the TV is incredibly detailed and 3D. So 2D art, I call some of these 3D tools I call unicorn in a tutu because you basically type in unicorn in a tutu and like something pops out. It might look like a rainbow or a roller coaster, and people are like, "Oh, that's close. That looks good." And this is actually working and incredibly detailed. It would take an artist 5 or 6 days to create this TV, and this can take minutes. So anyway, we're pretty excited about that. And then let's see here. The last thing that I'll mention is the tool to create a Polkadot avatar set. So I think this is also it's going to be a really great experiment for proof of personhood that Gav was talking about earlier, because we have an artist that was referred to us by the fellowship, and we had we had an idea that was presented to us of creating these 3D assets for everybody in Polkadot. Everyone who's in the community will have their own identifier, their own kind of skin, 3D skin. And we thought it would be really cool because, one, we can use them when Asset Hub launches in the Experience Exchange, and 2, we just thought it would be fun. And 3, Sortium bought into this idea, and basically they're going to be completely revamping their branding to Powered by Polkadot. And this artist, who we just brought in today, his name is Ilya, but his business is called Under. He's going to be creating these and hopefully creating community around it. So I think with that, I will go to Nicholas here on the next topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you hear me? So maybe I'll give a short introduction about myself and then maybe go through the journey I've had up to now here in Polkadot and sort of a few things that we're working on for the future. So I was initially in the banking and finance industry, which is kind of horrible, then went into the healthcare industry, which was even worse. I think sort of just coming out of the university and excited to do new things, I went into 2 industries which had the opposite problems. Very fast, very aggressive, sort of in the banking side, very slow and peer-reviewed, everything on sort of the healthcare side. Went back to Greece, had to do my military service, which is compulsory in Greece. then got a job there, and everything went to hell in Greece. So suddenly we had something called the financial crisis. I found the opportunity and I moved to Switzerland in 2011. And after a few years to get through the cultural shock of going through a country that nothing works to a country where everything works, I realized a couple of triggers that for the first time around 2013, Bitcoin as sort of the first, I would say, application of blockchain made sense to me. Because what had happened back in Greece as an initial step when we had the crisis was something called capital controls, which meant that literally there was an intermediary between my money and my bank, which would not allow me to be able to withdraw from an ATM more than 50 euros a day. Suddenly seeing lines everywhere in Athens and over Greece of people trying to just get access to their own money. And obviously that had triggered another really painful memory, my mom throwing away my Nintendo. So she was the intermediary back then to sort of my assets, which were my games. And yeah, we had moved in a world where right now all of this ease with social media and everything available through a subscription, it seems that we have sacrificed quite a lot for that experience. That's when in about, I think, 2020, we started looking into this technology. Games was a natural fit. We're used to digital economies. We're used to funny, silly coins in those games, trading them, feeling very sort of strong about our different characters and they're identifying with them and creating sort of these digital societies, which we're quite happy to live in. I think the first iterations of the technology like Ethereum were not and still are not appropriate for what we're looking for here in gaming. And when we figured out that we had seen that Gavin had moved on and creating his new, at that point, whether it was going to be Ethereum on steroids or whatever Polkadot is, a new iteration which was meant for scalability. And that's when sort of we, I think, built one of the first gaming chains here in the Polkadot ecosystem with the Yuna network. I helped the team at that point both sort of join the ecosystem and raise those initial funds. And we really wanted to focus on chain gaming. And I think one of the things that we liked here is that we found that there's sort of a really powerful developer platform, which is obviously evolving from a model of power chains, as we saw initially, to what sort of the future, which I think is what Gavin talked about Jam. At this point, you have a very mature blockchain network with quite a lot of not only developers, different teams working sort of in here together, and quite a rich community which is growing, I would say, day by day, not only from the developers, but you'd also see whether that's sort of users, active members in our treasury. You can see on every week we have our own shows where we figure out ways how to govern our own network. So yeah, we're growing, I would say, quite a lot. The difficulty that we faced, most of us as builders initially in this ecosystem, is that we hadn't realized that it's a bit like the movie Inception. We all were startups building within a startup, because Polkadot is still sort of quite early on in its sort of life. Same for the two main, I would say, custodians of Polkadot, whether that's the Web3 Foundation or Parity. And sort of that's a very difficult problem to solve as a founder. How do I make sure that I can focus what's important for me when I have a big variable here, which is how this technology evolving. It's been quite difficult for a lot of teams joining in here to see sort of that evolution of technology, but I think it's a natural sort of progression in these decentralized networks. We try a couple of things, some things work, we take the best of it and move forward. And I think that's what we're seeing here with the Jam. The next sort of iteration of Polkadot with Jam. What is getting a lot better, which we're really excited about, is that we're getting to that application there. And I think that's sort of one of the things that we're looking forward to now in the summer, when we sort of launch the EVM side of what we're doing, to be able to really present a permissionless way where we can attract developers who are already building whether elsewhere or want to experiment on the smart contract level inside here. But already there's a lot going on from some really great wallets, some fun little games, fun big games coming from Mythical, already out in the market. So really looking forward to see how we can continue working on the application there. I think we've talked a lot about Mythical, but I think what's really important here and what differentiates and what really helped, I think, our ecosystem is that we got somebody here who was really focused on two things. One was those big IPs, and directly going to the users. Most of the other builders in this ecosystem were much more in the infrastructure, trying to figure out what are those tools that are needed there, but having sort of this big divide between the tech and the end user. Hopefully, by having sort of Mythical here, which is our flagship, let's say, gaming project, we can start reaching out to indie developers, companies that sort of starting to see that there is success, that there is value, and we can continue forward. In terms of a couple of future initiatives, there's things obviously that we're doing on the tech side. We're going to try a couple of other things. One thing that I've been working on for the past few months is the idea of an innovation park, which we're looking to call the Jam Arena. This would be something that initially as an idea would be set up in Athens and looking to move forward into different spaces, joining up with Joist, which is sort of they have set up a few innovation parks quite successfully, initially in Greece and now in a few other places in Europe. The Institute of European Entrepreneurship, who is also looking to support. We're talking with a few game studios and a few gaming VCs who could be excited, and we're looking to see whether that could be a good solution where we can provide a physical, let's say, park hub, whether that's graduates like you, whether that's companies like Mythical who would like to spin off teams, right, in sort of a country which historically can be quite creative and cheap to operate, and then sort of seeing how we can move forward into different spaces. As sort of a final say from my side, I would say that I think this is one of the most exciting times for game development. It's been, as Angela mentioned, notoriously difficult and expensive to be in this space. It's like you're always betting on a moonshot. It's like a movie, right? You can't have an MVP of a movie and test it with users. It doesn't work out. You have to make a 100 million investment and hope for the best. But things are changing, right? Whether that's tools like AI, where suddenly through vibe coding, you can get to an MVP of a game in 2 weeks, which is something which was undoable without a team of different people. I think we're going to get to prototyping much faster, much cheaper. And hopefully these different user-generated platforms will start opening up its platforms to different technologies like the blockchain space. And I think that's it from me. If there's anything else that you'd like sort of as a Q&A to ask us, more than happy to take any questions.
Before we get to the Q&A, since we have 2 minutes, I meant to show one more thing, which is what we went through, Chrissy and I went through in the policy meeting this morning. And I think it's worth it if you don't mind real quick, because we did do a little bit more of a deeper dive, and I just want to show a few of these slides in case you haven't seen them. Hang on, let me just get to the gaming piece. This is pretty exciting. So we are investors in Mythical. We were seed round investors. Okay, here we go. So, and Mythical was the first to get to kind of mass market scale 7 million wallets on their first game, NFL Rivals, which is a really big deal because most of these games, like I said, are kind of short and kind of come in, buy the token, sell the token, go to the next game. The other thing that's really interesting about this is that the players they're there for the game. It's very similar to the demo. The demo of players who are playing this game is very similar to the demo of players who play Madden, EA Madden, if anybody played that. How many people have played EA Madden or FIFA? Yeah, a lot. I would think a lot of people. So 7 million people played that. They have a new game coming out called FIFA Rivals, which could be 20 times the size of that. So again, NFL Rivals was probably one of the biggest games, or the biggest game we've seen in crypto and blockchain gaming. And now the new game, FIFA Rivals, could be 20 times that size. So what's really cool about this is John Linden ran Call of Duty, and then they have, one of the founders of Wizards of the Coast. They've got Electronic Arts. They've got people from Blizzard, et cetera. And he said that, not only does Polkadot allow him to sleep at night, recently he said there's no other chain that I could actually build and launch these games on. He moved the entire, as Gav said earlier, he moved the entire chain from Ethereum to Mythos, and it really didn't even make the news, moving from Ethereum to Polkadot, Mythos on Polkadot. So 2 things I wanted to put on the radar for everybody. Pudgy Penguins is coming out very soon. also on Polkadot. This is really important because if anybody knows Stumble Guys, it's a very similar genre to that. 400 million players have come into Stumble Guys, but there's no concept of ownership, and there's a missing kind of in-app purchase economy. So this is a really, really exciting game because in that party genre, it could really dominate. Also, tournaments in Stumble Guys are really big, and so again, as a community builder, watch this space and get involved. Come play the game. So this is FIFA Rivals again. It could be 20 times the size of NFL. And the interesting thing about this one is that a new mechanic that is a blockchain mechanic that players don't even really know about because it's very natural. It merges onto the highway of their natural behavior. Is I have these 3 items, you have this one, let's swap these. That mechanism, which is all on chain for Mythical, boosted engagement by about 20% immediately. So now other games are looking at what is going on in Mythos, what is going on in Polkadot, and how could I use that platform to maybe bring my game. Again, the gaming industry is struggling, revenues are pretty flat. If you can show a game developer a way that he can boost engagement by 20% and transactions by 20%, or revenues by 20%, that's pretty powerful and impactful. So anyway, and then the other thing that I would say is you won't see them focusing so much on Mythos the token, but rather Mythical the brand, secured by Polkadot. So, and it got the top 50 in 2024. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much. Do you want to join? Great. Does anybody have any Q&A?
I think there's a mic somewhere.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Anjay. So my question is, are these games only for PC, or do you plan to expand to like PlayStation's, Xbox, Switch?
Yeah.
I think from Mythical's point of view, they've chosen for now a mobile strategy, which makes a lot of sense right now. That's where the biggest audience is. I would say production costs are small, at least at AAA games on platforms. There are other studios right now that are which have a Web3 ethos that are starting to show up on consoles, like off the grid. But yes, absolutely, most SDKs like the Unity SDK and the Unreal have different compilers which are for console, PC, and everything.
Thank you.
Hey, my question would be like a lot of the artists and creators and kind of like indie game devs and stuff, I know they're really like anti-AI and anti-crypto, like because they still remember the whole NFT, Axie Infinity, like all those pump and dumps.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of imagining you guys will be having like a hard time with those indie studios. Like, are you experiencing that, or what are your strategies there?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're focusing on the indie developers that who we can build relationships with and show them that Axie Infinity is not what we're doing here. Token flips is not what we're doing here. All of those rumors about blockchain, they're all true. They're all true. It is a money grab. It is mostly token scams. I mean, if you look at the blockchain games report, like most of those tokens have gone to zero. So it is all true. All of those rumors are true. What we're aiming to do is build true Web3 kind of, capability that serves the developer, that serves the game developer. Again, keeps them connected to their audience. Because a lot of these game developers now, that we're seeing a merger between entertainment and games. And I'm sure you've probably all seen, there's like a gazillion movies out that were originally video games. And that trend is only increasing. And so if you're a game developer, you're thinking, how can I take this transmedia? How can I take this to a web show? How can I take this to a studio? How could I potentially take this to something other than what I'm doing right now? And Web3 actually enables that connection to the audience so that you can leave without being kind of imprisoned by the platform. whatever platform it is. And so that's something that we actually just need to educate people on, is that the true Web3 ethos is about truth on the internet. It's about authenticity, and it's about bringing your audience with you. So all of those things that they don't know take a little bit of time to explain, but yes, they are suspicious. I mean, Axie Infinity, I got a lot of grief for not investing in Axie Infinity because I was, this blockchain, gaming background person, and I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, it's just not fun. And I don't get it. It just feels like income arbitrage a little bit. But anyway, when it was hacked by the North Korea Lazarus group, there were only 9 validators. So for a 51% attack, only 5 of the 9 needed to be, hacked. 4 of the 5 were owned by the company. That's not a decentralized anything. That's just a company. So we got to get away from a lot of that speculation and trading and focus more on what media is engagement and fun.
Hi. Do you considering like the possibility of like also engaging like the gamers, how they influence like the game development process? Basically, like the Polkadot provides like the sophisticated governance system, and like I assume like the gamers will also like receive like some kind of the tokens they can use like by playing, but they can also like utilize these tokens for influencing like the game development cycles, the features they want, and like overall like through this like governance model. So like the gamers like just can request something. So it's not only for developers. Are you considering any of this functionality, or it's only primarily for developers?
I think maybe I'll give a perspective here on this. I think it's a tricky question to answer. As a space, we've been trying to tell, I think, game developers for the past few years what they should do with blockchain by throwing out terms like NFTs and ownership and things like that. You can think about sort of this phase in the cycle a bit like when the smartphone came out. It seemed like when the App Store actually came out, the first apps that appeared on them were games. But the business model was not there. So what game developers would do, they would just literally port whatever they had on the console, put it on the mobile store, and try to charge $30 for it. It didn't work. It was sort of a completely different use case and market. And it's only when the game developers figured out a new business model, in this case free-to-play, which suddenly both the device and the technology made sense for the end user. It seems that, I think from our side, governance is one of the strongest points that we have here on in our ecosystem. And I think when you think about games and how communities in those gaming spaces interact with each other, that's a lot of value here. Whether they should have an opinion on how the game is being developed sounds a bit like giving the inmates in the prison a say of how the prison should be run. I'm not sure that will really work out.
I mean, like in the gaming industry, it's like pretty like often we can experience when the developers are forced to do something, like include some features into the game, like by the request of some stakeholders. But in the Web3 like ecosystem, like the users are stakeholders. In this case, like they can propose some like features they want.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I mean, there's a huge move kind of concurrently happening, which is UGC, user-generated content, and the players are becoming the developers, are becoming the players. And I see it with my daughter who's 13. She doesn't even really think about the idea of being a gamer, and yet she built a store that has dresses that she sells. You know what I mean? And I think that these tools are also becoming so easy that, yeah, there is an aspect to what you're saying that I agree with. But
thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. What? Hello? Yeah, you can hear me now.
Hello.
For an indie developer, how can you guys help him align himself with the market? Like what kind of information he can get about like about the market, the demo, how to how to do marketing and stuff like that in the ecosystem.
That's a really good question, because actually the very first tool we bought was called Solston, and it's a software that actually surprisingly almost every large publisher has adopted. And basically what it is surveys. So it gives players kind of rewards for completing these surveys, and they're detailed surveys about kind of their preferences. And we're able now to do a lot of crossover demo, so we're able to do, people who like wrestling and people who play Fortnite, because we're going to hopefully be making a game with Mercedes Moné, a wrestler. There are definitely tools out there, and then we've been able to show that to developers, like, oh, why don't we could run a demo for you and see kind of what, how you could think about your audience better and targeting your audience better. And actually, a really interesting thing, Mythical, so you mentioned, PC versus mobile. Mythical's first game was called Blancos, and it rolled out on PC. And it was they couldn't figure out what was going on, because it was a really high average revenue per player, and they couldn't figure out why there weren't very many players. And so we used the Solston data, and the conclusion was, the good news is the people who love this game are going to play it all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. The bad news is there aren't that many of these people in the world. So it's definitely really important to kind of understand the demo before you build a game, because I think a lot of game developers go out and build it. Like, if you build it, they will come. And especially when it takes a really long time to build, and then you just press that button and find out if it's pass or fail, it's pretty scary. The other thing to mitigate that we're seeing is live ops. So live ops, meaning that the game continues to get updates and grow and develop over time. So every Friday, for example, the SpongeBob game has a live ops update. So it changes a little bit. So between Monday or Saturday and the following Friday, they can say, ooh, the community is saying this. Let's try to put that in the game. They don't like this. Let's take that out of the game. So I think live ops is helping with that, helping to kind of smooth that curve and lower the risk for game developers, because it really, up until now, has been developed for 2 or 3 years, launch the game, and it could bomb. So I think you're right. Those tools are super important.
Maybe just from an ecosystem perspective, there's a couple of other things that I think for indie developers we can help. First of all, there's quite a big community already here in Polkadot. There's nothing better for an indie developer to have a built-in audience that's passionate about trying what you've created, so I think that's a big advantage. We have a couple of initiatives that have been started by the Treasury. For example, we have Heroic Esports, which is one of the biggest gaming esports organizations, especially in Europe. So there's marketing opportunities there. So there's a couple of different things, even from an ecosystem perspective, we can support indie developers with.
Can I get in touch with you guys? Because
Yeah, sure.
I was just curious if you guys have. I was curious if you guys have interacted with other like super successful indie game publishing companies like Devolver Digital or Capybara, Chucklefish, and those are the main ones that I know. But I'm curious if you guys have like tried to reach out and get conversation and see what they do that works really well and things like that.
I mean, not those specifically, but if you have any contacts who are interested in Web3, send them over.
Yeah.
There's so many independent game developers, and we're
Specifically
really
publishers, other publishers, like successful indie game publishers. Yeah.
Publishers, right? Yeah. There are a lot, and we haven't talked to those 3 that you mentioned, but we are publishers, studios, developers. We're getting a steady inflow, and we're meeting with as many as we possibly can, because it's, as you probably know, for every 100 that launch, only a few are successful. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way our meeting schedule goes. We meet with a lot. So yes, we'd be happy to take any referrals, send them our way.
Cool. Hey, thanks everyone.
Thanks.